But for this first hour, we'll be looking at Day of the African Child under planning and budgeting for children rights. Allow me to rope in my panel of experts. On the bottom right of your screen, the lovely lady there is Susan Thuku handling the sign language interpretation. Remember, we are live on our social media spaces, so kindly for suggestions, comments, or even where you are watching us, we highly welcome. Allow me now to rope in my panel of experts, beginning from my extreme left, where we have Madam Eunice Kilundo, who is a child protection and advocacy manager at Childfund Kenya. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Just next to her, we have Jack Matika from the Koinonia community. Karibu sana, Jack.
Thank you so much.
And just next to me, we have Richard Jahonga Mugata, who is the director Directorate of Compliance at NCCS. NCCS standing for National Council for Children Services. Ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you so much.
For clarity of this discussion, allow me just to point out, allow you to point out what exactly you do in your respective organizations to champion the rights of children. Beginning with you, Eunice.
Thank you so much. I work for Childfund Kenya, which is an international organization that caters for the needs of children, especially the achievement of all children's rights according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, to make sure that children are growing up wholesome and their needs catered for.
Yes, and Jack, I've interviewed you before, but for our viewers, what is your core mandate, particularly in the protection and advocating of children's rights in Kenya?
Thank you so much. Koinonia community is a lay-based organization that was founded in 1985, and Koinonia in several countries. For instance, there's Koinonia Kenya, Koinonia Zambia, Koinonia Sudan. And our main mission objective is basically to give an opportunity for vulnerable families, children. And therefore, for the last 35 to 40 years, Koinonia has been championing the right of children to education, right for children to have a place that is safe for them. So when you're talking about children, and then Koinonia community has been championing the rights of children in Africa. And in Kenya, basically, Koinonia still continuing championing the rights of Kenyan children. And with that, we don't work under isolation. The team that are with me in this particular interview or panelist, we work very close with them. Yes, to ensure all Kenyan children are safe. Thank you.
And to you, Richard, you're the Director for Compliance and Advocacy. What exactly do you do?
Yeah, Director Compliance, Registration and Licensing at the National Council for Children's Services. National Council for Children's Services is the regulator in the children's sector. And as a regulator, we develop policies, we give advisory to the government, we monitor and actually regulate the children's sector. So my role at the council is to ensure that we comply with the standards, policy and regulations around the children's sector. Yes.
And in your view, what is the current state of children's rights, and especially when it comes to essential services and also protection?
Children's rights in Kenya has been improving over time. We must say, as a country in the region and internationally, we have been acknowledged as a country that is fostering protection of children. Noting that both at the Constitution and also the Children Act does really provide so much safeguards for child protection. But in practice, of course, we still have many challenges where we have, as you've already indicated, issues of trafficking. We have issues of violence against children still being meted, though since 2019, when we had the some census about it, we have seen it reduce over time. So we are saying that as a country, we're moving towards an environment where we seek to protect our children. And I think we have made significant efforts towards that direction.
Eunice, Childfund has a strong focus on community-led projects, especially those that are advocating and championing children's rights. How does this approach integrate with the whole broad perspective we are looking at of planning, especially on children's rights?
Thank you so much for that question. Indeed, Childfund has a very key focus on strengthening community-based child protection mechanisms. It's actually our niche in child protection for the reason that we believe that communities hold the key to the protection of children, because children belong to the community, and home is really the place where a child's values are shaped, and that's the place where a child needs to be molded into the responsible human being that they're going to be in adulthood. And so we believe that strengthening community responses in terms of building their capacity in protecting children, helping them understand their role in protecting children, empowering them to understand what entails the protection of children, ensuring that they know the relevant referral linkages that need to be in place in the event that protection issues arise is really our core mandate, and rightfully so, because parents, as you know, they are not, they are really key in the lives of children. We want to make sure that parents understand their key role in terms of shaping children in this age. And I must particularly point out in this digital age, for example, many parents actually do not know what is happening within the digital space. Children tend to even understand the digital space better than parents. So it is of critical importance for them to know how to protect their children in the online space, how to protect their children against issues that are emerging. In the yesteryears, we know that parents used to, everybody used to be every child's parent, but now there is the individualistic kind of culture that has crept in among us, and making sure that children and parents and communities understand their collective role in protecting children is very key in our interventions as Childfund Kenya.
And Jack, I've noticed that you in a number of African countries. Which specific areas of children's rights does Koinonia community prioritize in its work?
Thank you. Now, first, I want to basically believe with all of us that what we are doing, I think if you look at the law of the land, Kenyan Constitution, anchored whatever we are saying today. If you go to the Article 53, basically, it tells what a nation should do to ensure that children are protected. So you can mention all forms of rights that all the children basically in every given country will need. As Koinonia community in all these, the country where Koinonia is based, basically we follow the law of the land constitution, and as a civil society, we continue voicing for the rights of the children in very many forms. For instance, when I talk about education, in Zambia, Koinonia continue advocating for right of children to access education, and not only education, but quality education. Because when you're just talking of education, and then any child can go to school, and at the end of the day, learn nothing and come back at home. So we are advocating for quality education. When I talk about rights, you have seen, I was watching television, and then a child 7 years, 10 years old from Nyeri, basically found killed, So what as a nation, where are we? Because the protection, the right of children is anchored in our constitutions. So the police the police need to do their part. You know, the NCCS as mandated with the policy formations. Of course, I have interacted with them. We as a institution interacted with them. They have very good policies, you know, to ensure children are safeguarded from any harm, from any abuse. And as Koinonia community, we advocate very much on the education and safety of all children, wherever they are. Yes.
Richard, allow me to pick from where Jack has left in regards to their rights, the children's rights. It was a very unfortunate affair, what happened in Njue a couple of days ago. And I love the law, and I've been in courts for a number of years. And I witnessed that I think it was in 2022 when we passed the Children's Act.
Yes, yes.
Of course, when we look at people who are vulnerable, you do remember that the Persons with Disability Act was actually passed this year after being in court for more than 10 years. The Children's Act of 2022 is quite a piece of legislation. How does this impact and change the way we look at advocating for children's rights and protecting those rights?
When we look at the Children Act, the first thing it did was to establish two institutions, very important institutions. One of them is the Directorate of Children's Services. The other one is the National Council for Children's Services.
The organization now? NCCS?
Yes, our organization
yes.
now, the NCCS. Now, if you look at the current act, it has given the Directorate of Children's Services the implementation of the act. As we at the National Council develop policies, do supervisory work, and coordinate the sector. So what the Act has done is that it has really allocated various responsibilities to various persons. Children Act is not, or rather the care for children is not an act of an individual. Not single, we cannot have a single organization managing and effecting the rights of children in this country. So the police, for example, have been given the director of police, that's the Inspector General, has been asked to establish child protection units in all police centers. If you look at now the council, the National Council for Children's Services has also been mandated to establish committees up to the sub-county level and beyond that are responsible for taking care of children, what we call children advisory committees, which need to be active so that the community is engaged in the process of protecting children. The other very key and very important aspect is that the Act has recognize that children need to be raised from the family setup and community setup. That's why you have heard that we are transitioning from institutional care to family-based care. So we are strengthening communities through various programs. For example, you've heard about positive parenting, you've heard about cash transfers. These programs, which are anchored in the Act, the Children Act, which recognizes for example, alternative family care as a social security, has recommended the establishment of a child welfare fund. We expect that this child welfare fund will be a very important instrument in supporting what we call child welfare programs within the communities. So we are encouraging communities to come up with child welfare programs within their community setups so that we prevent children from going out of our community into, say, the street or out of the family care, out of the parental care. Yes.
Eunice, from your experience, what are the most significant gaps when it comes to planning and budgeting for children's rights, and especially when it comes to both the national and just as Richard has mentioned, cascading to the county level?
Maybe just to pick it from where he stopped, I would want to applaud the government, of course, for quite significant steps in terms of protecting, demonstrating commitment to protecting children. The Children Act, for example, being aligned to the Constitution, Children Act 2022 was a big step in terms of government demonstrating commitment. I would also want to applaud, the state, now that Children's Services now, the Directorate of Children's Services is within the State Department of Children Welfare Services. The fact that it's a state department is a good indication that the government has an interest in ensuring the protection of children. The whole aspect of free primary education is a good gesture from the government. But like you've mentioned, there are quite key and critical gaps that are yet to be addressed. Beginning with the Children Act 2022, for example, much as the Act is in place, we don't have the requisite rules and regulations to ensure that the Act is fully effective. So that is one glaring gap. Of course, a lot is being done to ensure that the regulations, rules and regulations are in place, and they are, quite an advanced stage to be put in place, but they're yet to be put in place. That's the position. Again, much as there is free primary education, we want to ask the government to make sure that even at the home front, the children are enabled to enjoy that free primary education. We know poverty is a key factor that would inhibit children from enjoying the free primary education. When a child is coming from a poor background, the chances of attending school regularly and completing school, attendance, retention, and completion are affected. Again, what is happening within the home front can affect a child to be able to go to school or to even enjoy the environment that is very critical to them enjoying free primary education. When there is strife at home, when the parents are jobless, when there's no peace at home, children are not able to enjoy that right to education. And so we also want to talk about the children department now being a state department is not enough. I said it's a big step, but it's not enough. Let's not stop at that. We need to ensure that the state department is allocated sufficient resources to be able to execute their mandate as expected as a state department. And so we are at a season where, of course, we are waiting to see what the budget provides to the State Department, and our urge is to the government to be able to allocate sufficient resources. A few reports from a recent study by UNICEF indicated that there are really big gaps in terms of the social workforce across the country for ensuring that children issues are addressed at county and below levels. Very many sub-counties do not have children officers. There are children officers that are taking care of several sub-counties, which is not supposed to be the case. Childfund has undertaken an analysis again on the same in terms of budgeting for children, and there are key gaps in 3 areas that I would mention. Of course, we were examining the overall budget allocation to the Directorate of Children's Services. We were also looking at the Victim Protection Trust Fund, which takes care of not just child victims, but all victims of abuse and all that. And our key interest, of course, is in children. So when children are abused and they need some form of compensation, compensation. The Victim Protection Trust Fund, having not been allocated, having not been activated, I must say that for some years it has been allocated a budget, but because of the requisite regulations that are required to activate it, then the budget has not been benefiting the victim for which the fund exists. Again, the child helpline, for example, is very inadequately funded. We know the child helpline is so critical to the protection of children because that's a means that is provided by the government for children in whatever part of the country to be able to ask for help in terms of abuse happening to them wherever they are. So if the helpline is not sufficiently funded, it means that children are not able to access help when the help is required. Children are not able to access counseling services. Children are not able to be referred for support where based on the issue that they have. And so there's quite a number of issues that are yet to be addressed for the government to really demonstrate that they take the protection of children seriously.
Jack, I noticed you were nodding when Eunice was speaking when it comes to resources. And I pointed out when we began that Kenya allocates less than 4% of its national budget to children-specific programs, despite them consisting of over 48% of the population. You work in a community that doesn't rely on the government coffers for their funds. What are the most significant challenges that you do experience, especially when it comes to resources allocation? Bearing in mind that you don't draw your money from the government coffers.
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with my colleagues, NCCS and the child funds. Of course, the question you ask is an elephant in the room. Yes, because you see, when you're talking about the gap that is there, as a civil society, just let me start by saying that as a civil society, Koinonia community also recognize a good effort the government has put in place, especially the NCCS, other state departments. Of course, you can see there is a fruit, when it's come to regulations and the new formulation of policies to ensure that all children are safeguarded from any harm. So we really appreciate the government. Now, when you talk about the gap, I see we have good policies, Banaben. We have good policies as a nation. Where is the problem lying? The problem lies in corruption. Our system are very corrupt that when you're talking about innocent people, children, to talk about education. For instance, I have heard of an institution's civil society that does rehabilitation. They take children to school. A child is denied right to access a classroom. Reason why? The child has no uniform. The child has no some levies to be paid. You see, if you look at the regulation state department, that's NCCS, they have very good policy that they have formulated to ensure the right children are protected from such. But what happened at the end? So there are institutions that basically sabotage some other institutions, and at the end of it, who becomes a victim? The victim becomes Kenyan children, and so is the future for the nation. The future is doomed ahead. So can we deal with the word, this big elephant called corruption? Yes. So if I talk about education is free, where is education is free in our country? If you're talking about all children has to access education, I tell you there are some institutions that learning institutions, primary schools, secondary schools, children are still chased out from those schools to go and source for funding from innocent families that living less $1 a day.
So you say if it's education, it has to be free.
It has
let
to be
it
free.
Be free.
Define what free is.
Yes, and
define
let it be free for everyone.
Because at the end of the day, also when you state that all children has to access learning system with uniform, their innocent family in informal settlements cannot buy that uniform. Where are you leaving that child? Beside that, when we talk about the gap, beside corruption, there is also participation. We are talking of budgeting, planning and budgeting. So in every entity, I think participation is very key. When you want to bring policies, you want to bring funding to any institutions, bring the people, let people participate in whatever you want. So when there's good participation from the children themselves also, because don't say children are children, involve the children in what you want to do for them. Yes. So I think participation also we need to improve on that. And then we have policy, as I say. Do we implement the policies that's NCCS? If you look at the policies that have been formulated by the NCCS, they are good policies. But are they being implemented? If we implement, and then we'll not see what is happening, we'll not see what has happened in Nyeri, we'll not see children going to the hospital, and then they die because their families are unable to facilitate some money for them to access medical. Yes. Yeah.
And what exactly are you doing to overcome these challenges as Koinonia? Because we have noted that yes, a number of programs are being run by faith-based organizations. You've seen the Catholic Church, you've seen the Muslims do the same. How are you overcoming that as Koinonia community?
Bana Ben, I want to tell you that for the sustainability, you can't rely with the donor funding. When Trump basically, after getting into power, and then he has to cut all the... So any country that wants sustainability, you know, you have to invest. You have to invest. So as Koinonia community, we continue working with our colleague like Childfund. We want to work very close with NCCS. We also want policies in our institutions. So they come and help us to formulate policies that basically also safeguard what we do as institutions. We, at the same time, work with other state departments. For instance, when you're talking about ownership, the ownership of any child of any nation defined to the 2 people, or you can talk of 3 people, you talk of the society, talk of the parental, and then the most key person is the state. So the state own, you know, so at this stage, we are also working very close with the government, and of course, Bana Ben, they are showing a very good, you know, friendship with us, you know, yes, partnership with us. So which is good, is better for the sustainability. So we should not focus on donor funding, because at the end, there's donor fatigue and institution just collapse.
Yeah, and if we find time, we'll be looking at how the Trump's action have affected the country, and especially when it comes to children's rights, and how we can try and overcome them. It's a good thing you've said that we really need to put these programs in the exchequer as opposed to relying on foreign aid. To you, Richard, I'm looking at the 4%, that the allocation, less than 4% of the national budget. So in as much as we have very good policies, just like Jack said, and we have very good programs, when it comes to meager resources that we have, that really affects your operations as well. Also, what concrete steps is NCCS taking to advocate for increased budget allocation for children's services across all the 47 countries? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Bwana Ben. One thing about the children's sector, if you have seen, there has been some change. Previously, we had been organized alongside the social protection. And whenever, for example, funding towards cash transfer, when you had the elderlies, the people living with this disability. So when this sector received the money, it was considered that all the children were also included. Now, one of the most important steps, and which we applaud the president about, is the establishment or creation of this Child Welfare Services State Department. That is one very concrete step that the government is taking, so that we can now look at an entity called Children's Services, and then be able to really figure out, as my colleague has just said, that it is the right direction. So we can now be able, at a glance, to see what has been allotted to children. and children rights especially. So the establishment of children welfare services State Department is one of the most important ones. The other aspect as a council we have done, and very vigorously so, we have been doing a lot of advocacy, both at the Treasury, the National Treasury. We have been advocating with the Parliament Committee on Social Welfare. And we have also engaged the partners to ask that we come up really to speak for the children. Besides this, recently we have had children being mobilized so that they have a one-to-one engagement with the members of parliament, so that they are able to present their views to the parliamentary committees, so that in the process of budgeting, their issues are considered. So that, just as Jack said, that participation is a very important thing. So we have done this, and we continue to do this, and we expect that it will yield fruits. Now, we are aware that this council was established in 2022 with the Act, the Children's Act. Yep. So the council is still at its formative stage, actually 2 years of an organization. You'll find that even personnel, there are still aspects of recruiting personnel. We still have issues of structures that we have talked about to the local levels.
But it has been 3 years. Those teething problems are still there.
You know, Kenya has gone through quite a time of economic thinning. Yeah, you saw the government stopped employment and all that kind of thing, and those kind of policy. And really, to establish an organization, it takes time really within the government sector, because there are processes. So what we are saying is that as we continue, we see that the space is expanding, and that the sector is finding now a lot of redress. That's why we have this new State Department. And we expect that going forward, then the sector could receive more funding. Besides, as I've said, we wish to establish a child welfare fund, and we expect this fund also to galvanize resources from even the private sector to support the children's sector. So we really looking at all the available abilities to harness resources, so that this sector finds sufficient resources to move forward. Yes.
Now, Childfund, Eunice, works closely with the communities. How do you ensure that even the children themselves and the communities are involved in planning for resources, if there, so that their needs will be factored in any budget that will be provided?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Child participation indeed is very critical to the whole budgeting process, because again, who are we budgeting for if we do not, I mean, what are we really budgeting if we do not really find out from the people for whom we are budgeting what are their needs? And children, being part of the citizens of the country, have all the rights. And of course, based on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children pillars, participation is a critical pillar. And so as Childfund Kenya, we build the capacity of children to be able to articulate their issues through training them, ensuring that we are working with the education sector to be able to regularly and provide opportunities for children to be able to articulate their issues. And then we also provide platforms for children to express themselves. We enable children to interact with the county executive, for example. We support children leadership within the provided Kenya Children Assembly and Children's Parliament to provide an opportunity for children to be able to participate in their own protection. Again, as you rightfully put it, we are very key on strengthening child protection mechanisms at community and family level. And participation is not just at the national level, it should actually start at home. To what extent do we involve the children in decisions at home? For example, just something as simple as what we will eat today. Do we just cook and assume that children are going to enjoy the food that we are cooking? So we make sure that from the grassroots, we ensure from family level all the way up, children are able to participate adequately. I don't know whether you'll give me an opportunity to add on to something that my colleague mentioned as you were asking about the gaps. Yeah. I feel I need to underscore the importance of the county government in the protection of children. We know that the protection of children is the statutory mandate of the national government, but children live in the county as well. And I'm saying this particularly on the aspect of rescue of children. Like my colleague mentioned, the government is in the process of deinstitutionalizing children, and of course, it's a phased process of ensuring that within 10 years there are no CCIs in the country, but rescue centers are part of what the Children Act provides for as a role of the county government. Every county, in the 47 counties of Kenya, needs to have a rescue center, and the Children Act has provided that as a mandate for the county government. So we wouldn't want to say that the county government does not have a role in protection of children. With regard to the conversations around budget allocation, I would be keen to find out to what extent the county government is being enabled to establish these rescue facilities. These rescue facilities are very important because if it is no longer safe for children to be at home, there's no place for them to be kept. Sometimes you find the children being kept in police stations. And that's not a place to keep a child who is in need of care and protection, a child who is traumatized because of probably violence at home or exposed to any other protection risk. So these rescue centers are so critical, and they are a mandate of the of the county government. Now we are looking at budgeting for children, and Childfund promotes, as aligned to the theme of the Day of the African Child, right-based budgeting. So we educate children on their rights to be able to demand for their rights, for example. And when we talk about rights-based budgeting, we are talking about the right to protection, the right to participation, the right to development, which has to do with access to education and all, and the right to survival, which has to do with access to medical care and all that. So Childfund Kenya not only strengthens the capacity of children to understand their rights and to be able to engage with leaders so that they can demand for their rights to be, to access their rights, but also building the capacity of the communities to understand the same rights so that they are able to support the children to be able to access and enjoy the full range of their rights.
All right, and now that you've mentioned it, it was part of my questions. Gentlemen, I would like you to react to government's decision to review rescue centers and shut some of them. How will this impact the rights and protection of children? Jack?
Thank you, Banaben. I have interacted with my colleagues from different state departments, especially also NCCS and other bodies, that basically are mandated to streamline and try to improve. It is not doing away with what it is, just improving. I think we are not. If you look at what the government are doing, basically, it is improving from what we are doing in the past. Because, now we are living in a globalized world. And living in a globalized world, things has to be done differently, And there are statistics, there are reasons why government feel things should work this way. As also civil society, basically, we have came across several issues relating to children's abuse in different institutions. Abuse in what way? A child staying in an institution for more than 15 years, how will you integrate that particular child back to the community? How will that child survive when you take him or her back to the community? Because the way he used to live in our institutions, it was a heaven. Having blue bands, getting how many meals a day? Mention them, 5. And then you take this child after 15 years back to a family that cannot provide 2 meals a day. Mm-hmm. You have traumatized that young man into. And that's why if you look at, you can do statistics, basically, you'll be in a position to see after institution staying there for 15 years back to the community, majority of them basically cannot survive and they end up in crimes. Mm. So the government tried just to improve the system, whereby it's not really doing away with what is there, but improve. You have children there staying in an institution just temporarily. Temporarily means for 1 year. And then they are how to exit them from that institution. We have the foster care plan. We have all this kind of a system that aligns on how children can be exited but placed in safety, a place where they are safe. Mm-hmm. So as you said, Banaben, it is not the government trying to shut down institution. Mm-hmm. They're trying to improve the system, to regulate them. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Maybe Richard, you can add to that.
Yes, I think what Jack is saying is true. Mm-hmm. What we are doing is transitioning institution. One, we realize that taking care of a child within the community is cheaper than in an institution. The other thing that we are saying is that we have children who have been trapped in an institution without a birth certificate, without any registration paper until they are exited at around 18 years, and they have nowhere to go. If you look at the standards within the charitable children institution, we had what we called the base standards for charitable children institutions, which gave a child a maximum of 3 years to be kept within the facilities. But this has been abused by most persons who are around that. So what we are doing is that we are saying that rescue centers is a mandate within the act that counties need to establish. Actually, the act gives the counties the mandate to establish rescue centers, which are a temporary place of safety for children while their circumstances are being resolved so that they could be reunited with the community. We know that the counties also deal with the issues of ECDE child care facilities like the daycare facilities. Yeah. So we are saying that we really need to create systems that care for our children within the community. So we are not closing or shutting down institution. Actually, there is a phase of 10 years within which to change the way we care. Actually, we are saying the way we care. When you have a brother, okay, you have orphan children within your community. We want to take it as a first priority that we in the community, we in the family, take in the children through a formal way. By the way, we want also this to be formal, that when you take up a child of your brother, it is formalized, so that also the government is able to track and trace that this child, after the father died, went to stay with, say, Troy, went to stay with Jack. So we want to regularize where children stay, but in the community. So what we want the stakeholders within this sector to accept is that we have cases where children were removed from home because of poverty. But you see, poverty can be, the home can be improved so that it is no longer poor. There are children who are taken from community that you're going for education, and then they are trapped in a CCI. Education can still be given within the community. There are children who are taken out of this home to go to an institution so as to make numbers for resource mobilization. You see, you need to say we have 100 so that you have donors now supporting the 100 in the institution. But we are saying you can come up with a child welfare program within the community and still the donors will support. So we are putting up structures, and we're even going to register these child welfare programs so that you have now the ability or the necessary papers that you could use to do fundraising if you wanted to. So what we are saying that as a government, what we are most interested in is the best interest of the child. Is it in the best interest of the child that I stay in an institution for 15 years, when I go back, I have no one I know, there is no contact with any relative, no contact with the community where I stay. Then at 18 years, I'm supposed to start my life in the community. So that one becomes traumatic. So I think that is what the government is doing. Maybe just to add on budgeting, as Madam has said, budgeting is a whole system. We are talking about a child himself knowing how to budget the 100 shillings you give him. So that is the idea.
It cascades down to even the child.
Yes, the child themselves, the child himself or herself. The child really needs to know, how do I budget my pocket money? How do I budget for my stay? If now you're going to a boarding facility, you are going to the first year university. Are you able to budget your stipend? Yes, that is the idea of budgeting, the whole thing, budgeting around the children's sector. How is the father, allocating the resources between myself and the children within my family? Do I get salary today and then I disappear? I swallow the entire salary, then, or is it an income? Let me use the word income. Then when I come back after 10 days, I have nothing. Then we are there fighting in the community. So this budgeting is not only on the government. It is the entire system of the child, the parents, the community. We really need to see, how do we allocate resources towards child welfare programs. And finally, let us not put buildings and structures as foremost to children, because whenever we go to public participation and we want to create, maybe to develop a road and then a school, people will go for a road more than a school. But we know if the school developed, then the road will later on come and be in place. So really, we really need to prioritize. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, we will be celebrating the Day of the African Child on 16th of this month. From what I have learned is that on 9th of June, there will be an official launch at the Bungoma, in Bungoma County by First Lady Rachel Ruto. And on 16th, the function will be in Makueni County, which will be graced by CS Finance John Mbadi. What are some of the events that we do expect, and what are some of the advocacy you want to move and to make sure that people know about that on that day? Yes, Eunice.
Yeah, of course, quite a number of issues have been discussed in the panel in terms of demonstrating the commitment to the protection of children. All that has been discussed here indeed reflects a dire need to protect children. Children are the future leaders that we are molding today. So the big question to ask ourselves is, what future do we want? It will be determined by what children we are raising today. So one issue, of course, is fast-tracking the finalization of the rules and regulations to be able to, for the Children Act to be effective. Government resourcing the new State Department to be able to effectively address the needs of children in this country. We would want a situation where children know where to get help, and when they go there, they get the help. Children officers at the sub-county level are literally overworked and very exhausted. Sometimes I have a feeling based on, because we work very closely with them, you visit with them and you try chatting with them, and they are they almost have a phobia of the cases that are going to come and the fact that they will not be able to address all of them. So it is so critical for every sub-county to have a children officer who is well-resourced. It is the same, you know, they would say the same when you go there. They would tell you, I don't have a vehicle to reach to the place where there is need. I don't have, you know, any means to address that problem much as I am technically competent. So hata kwa hali ya watoto, maafisa wa watoto wanasema saidia utumishi. Yeah, you'll find the same kind of mentality because much as they are so willing, they are not well resourced to do that. So allocating resources to the Directorate of Children's Services, allocating resources to critical functions such as the child helpline, ensuring that there is enough resources allocated to the county governments to be able to establish the rescue facilities. I cannot talk more about the rescue facilities because children are living within very unsafe homes because there is no place to place them. And so need for that allocation. There is need for allocation of resources to child participation. And when I talk about child participation, I'm talking about the formal child participation as provided for in the Act. Establishment of the children assemblies and, you know, children being able to elect their leaders and have forums to discuss issues affecting them, and these leaders being enabled to present issues that are affecting children at all levels, all the way from the grassroots all the way to the national level. Right now we have a president of the Children's Assembly, but an event happened that actually really, you know, brought to question how legitimate is the president of the Children Assembly in Kenya. We had the county Children Devolution Conference, and the children were invited there, and the president of the Children Assembly was invited as well. The children there actually, you know, shouted that, who is this being called our president? We don't know them. We did not elect them. Why? Because the mechanisms for electing the president that are provided for in the Act were not followed. And all this is traced back to inadequate resources. So for effective child participation, there is need for allocation of resources and the other issues that I have mentioned. At community level, it is important to build the capacity of parents to be responsive parents. Responsive parenting is so critical. So what is the government doing to ensure responsive parenting? I must underscore the fact that NGO resource envelope is dwindling by the day. You know what happened with USAID, and not just USAID, but many other donors. Much as NGOs complement government efforts, and very much so, as the resource envelope dwindles, then the gap becomes wider and wider. So, because it's the right of all children, their parents are taxpayers, they are citizens of this country, the national budget needs to reflect a good intention from the government and a firm commitment to the protection of children in this country.
Jack, as we celebrate on 16th of June this month, do you feel we are headed in the right direction when it comes to the theme of the day, that is planning and budgeting for children's rights?
Thank you, Banaben. Well, mine I will leave to the nation. This, that it is not a choice. It is not a choice for what we are saying now. Because planning and budgeting, if you look at the Kenya Constitution's Article 53, it clearly states what the state should do. You should plan, you should budget for the children, because they are the future of the nation. So it is not a choice, it is a right. And I echo the same what my sister from Childfund and my brother from NCCS. And of course, I want to say the spirit there, the anchor, is through our constitution. And when we all work toward it and implement in totality what we say. I have a friend from one of the State Department, that is Madam Toet. She's once upon a day told me that if you visit an institutions, sometimes what they say, it is not what is in the ground. So let's walk our talk as a nation. Let's walk our talk. We are talking about rights of the children. Let's address and speak the constitutions to ensure that our children and our nation is protected. So thank you so much.
Richard, as we wind up, on 16th of June and on 9th of June, you are very active. You'll be very, very busy. Yes. What are some of the activities that we do expect, especially in this year's Day of the African Child, and especially that are touching on the theme of the day, that is planning and budgeting for children rights? And when we talk about planning and budgeting, bearing in mind that Trump's decision to halt US aid has really affected any issue that pertains to the child when it comes to food, education, and also health.
Thank you so much. One thing is to invite all of you to come and be with us during the launch of the Day of the African Child at Bungoma in Kandui, and also at in Makueni at a school called Unoa Primary School. As you realize, Troy, we have decided to have the chief guest during the day, the 16th, as the cabinet secretary responsible for treasury. That is really in line with the theme of the year, because we want to use this day to really advocate for additional funding in the children's sector. Sometimes we do these activities without the really persons who share out the cake being aware or being involved. So we want to involve them this time. And we want to ask the question, is money allocated to children an expenditure or is it an investment? Yeah, that is a very important question that we shall be really discussing during this particular time, because we know any money that goes to a child is an investment. It is not an expenditure. Over the years, it has been considered an expense, and because of that, the attitude towards allocating money has not been very positive. One thing I must applaud the government is that the child protection sector has been identified as an essential service. And being an essential service, therefore, it really needs to be well funded, to be well resourced. As we have heard about the issues of workforce, we really need to have sufficient workforce so that the home is safe. You know, when we say the home is not safe, then we have a problem. Because home is the main place where the child should be. So we are going to really discuss that home is the best place where the child must live, and we must make it safe.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I have been speaking with three panelists here in regards to the Day of the African Child. Remember, the theme for this year is planning and budgeting for children's rights. On my extreme left, we had Eunice Kilundo, who is the Child Protection and Advocacy Manager at Childfund Kenya. Just next to her, we have Jack Matika from the Koinonia community, and just next to me, we have Richard Mugata, who is the Directorate of Compliance at NCCS. Thank you so much indeed for making time. And of course, the 9th and the 16th are the days to watch out for. On the second hour, we'll be looking at human trafficking and with a bias with the escalating crisis of enforced criminality, especially in Southeast Asia. And I'll be honored to be hosting the PS, Roslyn K. Njogu, who is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Diaspora Affairs, Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, and also Marcio Tieno, who is the Program Manager at Awareness Against Human Trafficking. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.